Welcome to the Passing Through podcast. If this is your first time listening in, this is not the kind of podcast that you are probably accustomed to. This show is a journey into the liminal. So if you're looking for a scripted podcast where I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in this episode, if you're looking for something that's been meticulously researched and fits into the standard kind of social media podcast frame where you get a brief little introduction and then I expand on a theme for the remaining time, then you are in for a surprise. This is something different. This is an exploration of an emergent space where it's unclear where things are going to go because that's how life is. We don't know what's going to happen, and we shouldn't, because that's where novelty and mystery and awe and wonder and beauty and synchronicity and all of those interesting things that make life unpredictable and fun happen. So that's the substrate through which I want to reach out and put my finger into your ears. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. And before we do that, one thing I want to say is that everything I just said, I believe it to be true. I also acknowledge that everything I just said has a sort of shadow side, where that very same unpredictability and uncertainty can itself become terrifying. Not knowing can scare us. This is the effect that darkness has on the modern mind. Not being able to see, hearing a sound in the night and not knowing whether it's friend or foe. These are scary things. We can feel them in the somatics of our body. And so there's this paradox that's inherent in this aspect of the way that the world works, in this pattern of nature, which is emergent and changing, constantly changing. And this simultaneously is capable of producing bliss, awe, surprise, and wonder, and also terror, horror, fear, despair. Because if that changing world happens to take away something that you love, if that's what changes, if I had a brand new beautiful car and I got T-boned as I was driving through an intersection and it destroyed my car and all of its resale value, and I happen to for some reason have no insurance on the car, I've just lost everything. If I'm in a casino and all of the wins and all the chips and money that I've been amassing on the table vanishes in one bad bet, I've just ridden this roller coaster up into the peaks and all the way down into the valleys. So that's what we're doing in life, right? We're going up these peaks of elation and exaltation and excitement and ecstasy. And inevitably, as that sine wave snakes its way like a serpent through time and space, we're going to descend. We're going to go down into the valley. And that can feel like falling into a fucking abyss, like literally toppling over into a chasm of chaos, despair, and pain. And that's the ride, right? We're here to experience everything. And getting back to what I was talking about here at the start, there is this pull or push towards control, predictability, forecasting, certainty, and this isn't how the world works. The world refuses to fit into that narrow frame. It becomes very uncooperative, unruly, disobedient, and rebellious when we try to exert our will on these cosmic forces. It's a unique characteristic of our time where we have made human needs, human desires, the human will the most important of all energetic or ensouled desires, right? Because there are other things with souls out around us. There are trees everywhere. There are squirrels and birds and foxes and dogs and cats and badgers and otters and beavers and snakes and fish and flies and grasshoppers and ladybugs and beetles. And you could just spend the entire rest of the podcast naming all of these little creatures that are living their own lives all around us. But for some reason, in the dominant Western culture, we have made it so that human needs prevail. Human needs are at the top of the pecking order, top of the list. And a lot of us don't even realize that. A lot of us, when confronted, might even say that it shouldn't be that way. You know, if some random person came up to you on the street with a microphone in your face and asked you, do you think we should consider the rights of all beings when we make a decision? Do you think that's fair and equitable and respectful and honors the dignity of other life on this planet? Most people would probably say, sure, that seems reasonable, that seems sensible. But in most of the messaging we receive, and most of the media we consume, and most of the stories we tell, unfortunately, the way that we conduct ourselves and move through the world, we put our needs above the needs of everyone or everything else. And in many ancient cultures, this wasn't the way that it was. It was sort of inverted. You know, the needs of your ecology, the needs of the environment around you that sustains you were paramount. They were at the top. Then came the needs of the community, then came the needs of the family, and then came the needs of the individual. So those were at the bottom, and probably rightly. In our culture, though, this is such a foreign, strange, bizarre concept that even saying it may seem laughable to some people. Or in saying it, you may be ready. You might anticipate an attack. I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear this as I'm speaking. It's distracting me, so it might be distracting you, so I should address it. My stomach is growling because I am in that liminal phase between satiation and hunger, because I have just woken up and I haven't eaten yet. So you're hearing my stomach groaning and bellowing, clamoring, screaming out, craving food right now. So I just want to acknowledge that that's happening. That's part of this emergent journey that we're on right now. And maybe some of you are even having a similar experience. Maybe you're listening to this on your way to work, or you're still in bed. You haven't gotten out of bed yet, and you wanted to hear the sultry, smooth, calming voice. Did it again in your ears before you started your day. And so your stomach too is singing out for food. It's begging for an offering. And so soon I will go bestow this belly with an offering, some noble sacrifice of some creature, whether it's eggs or oatmeal, fruit, vegetables, animal products like butter. Something will be offered and consumed and sacrificed so that I may live. This is another element of how the world works. Whatever's alive feeds on the bones of what is past. And all of us are passing through, right? We're all passing through this life until eventually we have that final pass through into whatever's next, whatever follows this life. And a lot of people have a lot of different beliefs on what happens next. And I use the word belief because we don't know. what happens next. It is the ultimate mystery. What happens when we pass on through this space? Some people think that we go to a realm up in the heavens, out beyond the material world, somewhere where everything is perfect and harmonious and beautiful and peaceful forever and ever and ever. In those same cosmologies, it's also possible to descend and be banished down into the deep, dark, fiery hell realms of the world, where you suffer and are tormented forever and ever and ever. Other people believe that nothing happens, that this body is animated by some sort of force that is physicalist. This would be scientific materialism, for example, or certain atheists who believe that when the organism perishes, everything perishes, and nothing happens forever and ever and ever. Still, other people, they are agnostic, and they don't think anything happens, but something might. They're open to the possibility. That door isn't closed. There's still the chance for something mysterious, something wonderful, something unknown and strange to happen. What that might be, hard to say. In other traditions, this life ends, but you continue moving through a wheel of samsara, and you are reincarnated again and again and again until you accumulate enough good karma and wisdom, and you have done enough perfecting of your soul. I guess they don't actually technically believe in souls in Buddhism, but you know what I mean, or you don't. And you are eventually broken free of this cycle of samsara, and you are liberated. And you go into a blissful nirvanic realm forever and ever and ever, where you are free from this cycle of suffering. And there are many different other beliefs. These are just some of the common ones in the year of our Lord 2026. And before that, there were even more traditions. Polytheistic traditions pervaded the planet. Everywhere, everyone believed that there were a panoply of gods. People believed that everything was alive. If you go back to Japan and look at Shintoism, for example, rivers are alive and have spirits. The winds, the rains, the trees, the forests, the rocks, the mountains. So there was this polytheistic sense of belonging and being where the whole universe is alive and shimmering with life. Whether or not we can notice that or appreciate it, it's there. And actually, that's a funny thing that I could remark on for a moment here. I don't recall where I saw this. I think someone sent me a link where it was a video of a pigeon eating seeds. And you might be thinking, what the fuck does a pigeon eating seeds have to do with polytheism and being in a diverse world of sentient and souled beings? Well, when you see a pigeon, and probably all of us have had this experience, and you watch it eat, it looks like it is madly pecking at the ground, creating a mess. Seeds or bread, whatever you throw at the bird is just flying all over the place. It seems desperate and depraved, madly pecking just to quickly get some food and fly away. But it turns out that if you take a video of a pigeon eating and you slow it down, what you see is a very calculated, very specific, very meticulous way of eating. So what the bird is doing is it's using its beak to kind of sift through the seeds that are on the floor until it identifies one that it's interested in or that's suitable, it's the right size and shape and color, and it identifies that one after it's sifted through it using its beak, and then it pecks down, it grabs the seed, puts it in its mouth, and it uses its little tongue to grab the seed and pull it through its beak down into its throat and into its stomach. And this happens fast. This happens so quickly that to us, when we watch how that bird behaves and how it eats, it seems like a totally chaotic, discordant, disordered process, but in fact, if you slowed it down, is highly ordered, highly precise, highly specific, and intentional. And so this suggests that a pigeon is operating in a wildly different sense of time than we are, right? Because what seems to us like an erratic, quick, hurried mess, flurry of action, to the bird is kind of just normal. It's calm, it's ordered, it's what it does. And if we can understand that and assume it to be true through observation, using the instruments we have to capture this type of stuff, in this case, a phone camera, we could begin to understand that other beings might also be perceiving time differently. And that means that we perceive time differently. So the way that time passes to us as compared to, say, a fruit fly or a dog or a cat, they're different. And then we can extend this out to trees, for example, trees that live hundreds of years, or sea sponges that can live thousands of years. What is time like for these creatures? And then if you want to go further and you want to get crazy and you want to lean into animist style thinking, which again is an ancient polytheistic view that everything is alive, then that means rocks too operate on a very different geologic time scale. The reason that I'm bringing this up is that to me, this just makes the world much more interesting. And maybe interesting is the wrong word. It fills the world with a different sort of agency. And to touch on what I was getting at earlier, it makes it much more compelling and persuasive to think that the world around us isn't just a bunch of dead matter, that the animals and trees and the fungi aren't just inferior life forms. You know, we like to think of like a jellyfish or a mushroom or a tree as something that's somehow less deserving of respect. It is somehow unimpressive. It doesn't have human intellect. It can't do what a human can do. But motherfucker, can you eat light? Like, can you eat sunlight? Like, last time I checked, we need to run around and eat food and take a shit on the floor. I mean, I hope it's not a shit on the floor. It's generally usually a shit into a toilet bowl, or if you are more ecological and have a compost toilet, you take that shit and you collect it and you use it to feed it back to the land so that you can increase soil fertility. But for most people, you're shitting in a toilet bowl and flushing that shit away. But the act of shitting is a stinking, vile, crude experience that people like to hide away from one another. You know, if you don't believe that what I'm saying is true, why, when you take a shit, do you go into the bathroom and hide? Why are you ashamed of shitting? Why do we have to sanitize it and hide it away? You know, our culture is very strange about shitting. It's the most natural thing in the world, and yet we want to pretend we don't do it. If you're dating someone right now, would you feel comfortable taking a shit with them right next to you in the bathroom? Let's say they're brushing their teeth and you're shitting, or someone's taking a shower and you're shitting. Probably not, right? Trees don't do that. You know, a tree is just sitting there still. It's chilling. Its leaves are blowing in the breeze. It has all of the grace and beauty in the world. And it's just eating light all day until the sun sets. When it rains, it drinks up the water from the soil. It's in beautiful partnership and symbiosis with the fungal network and mycorrhizal networks that are under the soil in the darkness, the little microorganisms there. And it's a beautiful thing. Trees have been around longer than we have, and so it's odd, it's very arrogant and strange to me that humans would denigrate other creatures that have been around far longer than we have and have seemed to be working in harmony with the world in a way that hasn't massively disrupted ecosystems or destroyed wetlands or put poisonous greenhouse gases in the air and bleached sea coral and heated up the oceans around the world and driven up temperatures and resulted in the sixth largest mass extinction event in the Earth's history. Somehow these lower beings managed to not do any of that. I don't know. It's weird. Doesn't seem to me like we are the smarter, more intelligent animals when you look at it through that lens. But my point here is just to say that maybe we should consider that our needs and our wants may not be the most important. You know, to me, it seems like we're an unruly adolescent on the world stage. We've just showed up and we think we're entitled to everything, and we think we should have unrestricted autonomy where we could just go around with no limits and do whatever we want all the time with no consequences, and that the earth around us is here for our entertainment and the taking. And to me, that's just strange. Seems immature and misguided. So I'm just offering a different perspective that maybe we should look to our ancestors and to those who came before us and who had the wisdom to understand that the ecology that we live in is what sustains us. It's what holds us. Without it, we are nothing. We cannot be. So maybe we should place it properly in this hierarchy at the top instead of an afterthought. We might all be happier. I think that's the interesting thing that I see right now in the world. When I look around, there's a lot of division. There's a lot of polarization. There is a lot of fracture, suspicion, fear, anger, hatred, violence. So many things are going on that at their root come from a lack of safety, come from a sense of scarcity. And this is used by people in power to create a sense of us and them. You know, you see it in the immigration debate in the United States. Not just in the United States, this debate is global. You look at almost any country, and there is this rhetoric and narrative of people coming to take what's yours. They're going to take your jobs. They're going to steal your kids. They're going to do your drugs. I mean, that's not true. Apparently they bring the drugs, which, you know, they give and they take, apparently. But it's not quite true, is it? You know, is it true that things are as scarce and uncertain as that makes it out to be? Or are we all just in search of the same thing? Are those people who are migrating to a different country, are they there for a reign of terror and depravity and cruelty? Or do they probably go there to flee persecution, seek asylum, have a better life for themselves and their families, have more safety, have more freedom, have access to clean drinking water? I don't know. I think regardless of whether you are left, right, or center, whatever your political affiliation is, whatever your religious beliefs are, whatever your sexual preference is, whatever sex or gender you are, if you are a human being and you bleed red blood, you shit, stinking, horrific shits, we all want the same things. And of course, I'm not trying to obliterate diversity and nuance and uniqueness of every person. We all want slightly different things, I would say, but at our core, we all want to feel belonging. We all want to feel accepted. We all want to be seen and heard. We want things to be fair. We want justice. We want freedom from persecution. We want to be able to breathe clean air, drink clean water. We want to not be taxed to death. We want our tax dollars to go back into our communities, to help the waters stay clean, to help the air remain breathable, to support local agriculture so that we have enough food. We want roads, we want education for our children. Most people want these things. I can't think of anyone who would disagree with anything that I just said. Of course, there could be people who say, I don't want clean water. I don't want access to food. I don't want to feel belonging. It's possible. The human being is a very multifaceted and interesting being that's full of paradox, complexity, nuance, negation, all of the colors of the rainbow. So, of course, someone somewhere might not agree with what I'm saying. But I'm doing what we're not supposed to do and making a sweeping generalization here just to say that we have much more in common with one another than we think or are led to believe. And it seems to me more and more, the more I learn, the more I read, the more I see, the more places I visit, the more time I spend with the land and with other people out on the land in our natural environment. And the reason why I'm talking about being out on the land is because your mind and your body adjust to the pacing of nature when you are immersed in nature. I think this is why when they do studies that find that people go on walks more frequently, are happier and more relaxed, it's because they are slowing down. They're not on their phones. They're out. They're listening to bird song. They're listening to the sound of the wind through the leaves. Maybe they see a waterfall. They see a red squirrel. Whatever it is that enchants you when you're out in the world, it gets you ready to slow down and take in what's going on and appreciate that speed of being, unmediated by technology, by a cell phone, by notifications going off, by the harrowing pace of a doom scroll. All of that melts away and you reconnect with a sort of ancient way of being, a feeling of home. And when I'm in those places and I'm talking to people, maybe you're tilling the land, maybe you're planting seeds, maybe you're building a structure that's going to be an education center for people for decades and decades. Whatever it is that you're doing, it feels natural and the pace isn't rushed and hurried. It doesn't have that GDP capitalist command to be faster, be better. Within reason, of course, because the sun has to set, right? There is a pace to the day, but you can move with that rhythm, the celestial organic rhythm, instead of these completely fabricated abstractions where somehow the day begins at 9 a.m. and ends at 5 or 6, and then you have your time. It's weird. But anyway, this is just me rambling because I live in a van now and don't have a job, and I am on the edge. I'm in that liminal space. So it's easy for me to talk about those things. But my point is, to just wrap this up, because I really need to go get some food, is that what I found is people, when they come together and you start really talking, not talking about what do you do? What do you like? What movies have you seen recently? Not that these are bad or harmful, but they're not very deep conversations or questions. They're very surface level. They're very safe. They're very easy. But when you go deeper, which also often just tends to happen organically when you're out in these spaces, you start to realize that people want those things. They want love. They want somewhere to belong. They want to contribute. They want to give their gifts. They want a sense of meaning and purpose. And when you meet people, you find that you have a lot of shared dreams and goals, and people come together, they form communities or they form organizations, and they work together to try to manifest those things and bring them into being and bestow those gifts out onto the world. And it's a beautiful thing. So to me, more and more, it seems like the purpose of all of this is to connect with people, collaborate, cooperate, build resilience, build solidarity, and self-sufficiency, to be able to unplug from these harmful capitalist, extractive, exploitative structures that we live in. This is the default paradigm of our time. And the way to escape it, it seems hopeless. We seem like, what can we do in the face of all this adversity, cruelty, oppression, and state power? Well, we can opt out. We could stop buying their shit. We can move away and work together to figure it out ourselves, because we can govern ourselves better than these governments can, it seems. Seems like they have no interest anymore in serving the citizenry. It is just completely bent on self-enrichment, cronyism, nepotism, greed, corruption, and self-serving behavior, often illegal. That's what we see around the world right now. So we know that this isn't working. We know we need something new. We know the system needs to collapse and needs to be, it's done. It's had its time. So I'm just going to end this by saying what I always say, which is be good to one another. And being good to one another is a complex thing. I think it means you start by listening to one another. You start by being authentic to one another. Start by taking a little bit of a risk and being vulnerable, being honest, and see what happens. Once you can build a foundation of trust and connection and cooperation, you begin to collaborate, you begin to work together, you help one another, you give things freely, not with the expectation of something in return. And maybe this all sounds a bit preachy, but maybe, but it doesn't make it less true. I don't think anything that I'm saying is particularly controversial in terms of what the story of our species has been since we've been a species. There's this myth of the survival of the fittest and this social Darwinism and that only the strong survive and all of these weird false narratives that we're fed in our culture. But the truth is that it is our ability to cooperate and collaborate and work together that has defined human civilization for as long as we have been humans. So that's one of the things that are at the heart of our humanity is our compassion, our kindness, the beautiful aspects of what humans are capable of and what they can do. And so I think a remembering is required, a recentering is required, a reconnection to ourselves and to the world around us to understand that the way forward cannot be competitive. It needs to be collaborative. We need to find a way to work together to have everyone's needs met. And the way that we do that is through conversation, through action, through raising awareness, and through really like sitting down and identifying what it is that we really need. Do we need a flashy new watch or purse or pair of pants or sunglasses or sports car or new gaming console or trip to Malaysia or whatever the fuck it is that we're doing? Is that what we really need? Or do we do those things? Do we search out those things because of a lack of something deeper? Because there's a gaping fucking hole inside that's full of grief, loss, fear, uncertainty, despair, a lack of belonging, inadequacies, doubts, resentments, anger, frustration, jealousy, whatever it is. Maybe all of those to some degree. It's a fucking strange brew that we have inside. I mean, I know I felt those things. These are human feelings. But if we can acknowledge that and sit with those things and listen to what they're telling us, usually it isn't that we need the thing we think we need. So I guess that would be my invitation here as I close out. Next time you catch yourself feeling those things, whether directly or indirectly, and what I mean by indirectly here is maybe you find yourself scrolling Amazon and you're looking for some new thing that you maybe don't even know what it is yet, but you know you want something. You have a sense of hunger. Your spiritual stomach is growling. There's something that it wants. Pause for a moment and think, am I misunderstanding what this signal is? Is this what I really want? It could be something simpler. You could be reaching for a fucking bag of Cheetos, a can of Mountain Dew. And you might be going, is this what I really want and need right now? Or is it something else that I'm wanting? What is the sensation that I'm going to receive when I have this thing giving me that I don't have? And let's say with the Cheetos and Mountain Dew or the bag. It's a sense of satisfaction. It's a sense of pleasure. Maybe it's some kind of physical gratification. Maybe it's just a compulsive, addictive sense of pleasure, because that is a distraction or a Band-Aid covering up a deeper wound, a deeper sense of dissatisfaction or pain that's more difficult to deal with. So we're self-medicating by drinking that beer or that salty food. It's a way of self-medicating and numbing and anesthetizing ourselves away from what's really underneath, because we don't actually want to be in contact with it, because to be in contact with that would be hard. It would be scary. It would be painful. And maybe we wouldn't like how we look if we saw ourselves in the mirror at that moment with orange powder all over our lips and fingers. I don't know. I'm hungry though. I catch myself talking about Cheetos and my stomach is still rumbling. So I'm going to go have some breakfast. Thanks for this journey into liminal space here with me as I just get some thoughts off the top of my head when I'm waking up. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, maybe go back and listen to a different episode. Be good to one another. I'll be back next time.